Sometimes, just a single glance is enough. No words are needed. There's no need for physical touch, not even the need to know the other person's name. Because when a connection arises from the unconscious, from that hidden realm beneath all logic and reason, what is felt cannot be put into words. And you know this, perhaps because you felt it too. In a city filled with countless faces, with names and lives intertwined in endless stories, something inexplicable happens. Out of the blue, someone appears, just one person, and they stir something within you, something dormant, something sacred. It's not just physical attraction. It's not fleeting chemistry or the whim of an emotion passing through. It's something much deeper, like a memory echoing from another time, another life, another fragment of your soul. Carl Jung once said that the most meaningful relationships in our lives are not the ones we choose with our minds. They are the ones that emerge from the darkness within us, from what he called the collective unconscious. These encounters are not guided by reason. They are guided by destiny, or perhaps, as Jung often suggested, by the soul's ancient memory. And here's what most people don't fully understand. Not all connections that cause pain are toxic, and not everything easy is necessarily true. Sometimes, the most genuine encounters we experience shake us to the core. They disarm us. They crack us open and force us to face parts of ourselves we never even knew existed. Not because the other person intends to hurt us, but because their presence acts as a mirror, raw, honest, unfiltered. And in that mirror, we see ourselves as we never have before. Have you ever met someone who, without even trying, made you confront everything you had buried? Your childhood wounds, your fears, your shadows, your need to control, your pride, masking your vulnerability. It's as if that person holds a key that unlocks the door to your most hidden self, even if you never gave them permission to enter. That is not coincidence. Jung would say you are facing an archetypal bond, a type of love that transcends the ordinary, that goes beyond the practical or romantic. It's not a bond that arrives to fulfill you. It arrives to transform you. It's not here to comfort your ego, but to awaken your soul. And transformation, real transformation, rarely arrives gently. Sometimes it erupts like a storm, shaking your inner world. It pushes you to face your emptiness, the one you've tried to fill with people or routines. It makes you realize that what you often called love was actually attachment, need, or fear of being alone. But with this person, everything shifts. Time seems to slow down. Words lose their weight. Silence between you feels more intimate than hours of conversation with anyone else. And without knowing why, you feel a sudden willingness to change, to grow, even to break, because something inside you whispers that this is what your soul longs for. Not your ego, your soul. Jung spoke of individuation, the heroic journey of the human being toward the fullness of their being. He described it as a process that often begins with an encounter. Not just any encounter, but one that challenges you, shakes your foundations, one that doesn't align with your expectations, but resonates with your deepest truth. And then you ask yourself, why can't I stop thinking about them? Why do I dream about them even after they've gone? Why do I feel something larger, something cosmic, tying us together? The answer lies beyond reason. It's hidden in the symbolic, in the archetypal, in the mystical. When Jung spoke of anima and animus, he was referring to the unconscious inner image we each carry of the opposite energy within us. Every man holds within him the image of the feminine, the anima. Every woman carries the masculine principle, the animus. And sometimes we meet someone who embodies exactly that repressed energy. The soul recognizes it instantly. It ignites. It remembers. And even if you can't explain it, you feel it. You know it's not an ordinary love. That person didn't come to stay. They came to awaken you, to return to you a part of yourself you had forgotten. And no, it's not always mutual in the way you wish it were. It doesn't always lead to a relationship, but it always leaves a mark. It transforms you. It etches itself into your being. And that's how you know it wasn't just a fleeting romance. It was something more, perhaps even divine. There's something sacred about the energy between two people who are connected on a deeper plane. It's not a bond that builds gradually. It feels as if it has always been there, waiting to be awakened. And when it does, the body knows. The heart feels it. The eyes reflect it. It's a vibration that pierces through you and cannot be hidden. No matter how much you try to deny it, no matter how rational or skeptical you are, deep down, you know, there is something different about this connection. Jung hinted at this many times. There are encounters that bring us face to face with the luminous, the sacred. And by sacred, he wasn't referring to religion. He was referring to a realm beyond the ordinary, a space where the soul speaks through symbols, through dreams, through synchronicities. Have you ever thought about someone and then they appeared, dreamed of them, and then saw those dreams unfold in real life? Heard a song or seen a number that seemed to speak directly to your connection with them? That's the collective unconscious in action. And when two people are linked by a bond this profound, that shared unconscious becomes even more active, because in truth, you're not alone in this connection. The archetypes are present. They awaken ancestral memories, patterns of the psyche that have been repeating since the dawn of humanity. That's what gives this kind of love its feeling of timelessness. And yet, the most painful part of these encounters is often that they don't arrive to give you stability. They come to shake your foundation. They're designed to provoke transformation, not through comfort, but through disruption. Because everything you've repressed, everything you refuse to see about yourself, will now surface, reflected in the other. Jung called it the shadow, the parts of yourself you rejected, buried, or deemed unworthy. And when someone unknowingly activates your shadow, the experience can become overwhelming. Because you're not just falling in love with the other, you're confronting yourself. That's why these connections are rarely soft or predictable. They don't follow the script of romantic movies. One day, everything seems to align, and the next, you're plunged into emotional chaos. And yet, you can't walk away. Something deeper holds you there. It's not codependence, though it might look like it from the outside. It's an inner call, a force that doesn't come from desire, but from the soul's longing. And the most confusing part? It often doesn't feel mutual, or at least not in the same measure. One person loves more, one awakens faster, and that imbalance can be agonizing. Because while you are experiencing a profound inner transformation, the other may not be aware of it in the same way. But that doesn't mean the connection isn't real. It just means each soul has its own timing. What matters is understanding that these encounters are not about possession. They're not about getting the other person. They're about what the connection awakens in you, what it breaks, what it reorders. Jung said, the soul needs symbols, living images, in order to move and evolve. And sometimes, the most powerful symbol it can receive is a person who, without even trying, reveals your truth. who awakens something dormant within you, who forces you to feel with such intensity that there's no going back. Because after such an encounter, something inside you changes forever, and you can't always talk about it. Others might not understand. They'll tell you it's obsession, that you should move on, that there are other people out there. And you know that. You know you could meet someone else, go out, laugh, distract yourself. But deep down, something still vibrates, a lingering echo, a memory that refuses to fade, that perhaps is the sign that you touch something real, something sacred. It's not obsession. It's not delusion. It's your soul remembering. It's your unconscious pointing to a path, a bridge toward your own transformation. And the most mysterious part of all this is that despite the pain, the confusion, the unanswered questions, something inside you whispers that it wasn't a mistake. That encounter had to happen. Even if it ended, even if they're no longer there, their presence served a purpose, not because they completed you, but because they stripped you bare, left you face to face with the parts of yourself you never wanted to see. In Jungian thought, these experiences are not accidents. They are activations, moments when the unconscious pushes you toward a higher level of awareness. And many times, it does so through love. Because love has a unique power to bypass all defenses. It lets your guard down. That's why, just when your life seemed to be in order, just when you thought you had everything under control, that person appears, and something inside you shatters. But it's not destruction, it's revelation. Because that bond didn't come to give you what your ego wanted. It came to give you what your soul needed, even if you don't understand it yet. Even if it hurts. Even if you're left wondering why you felt so much for someone who didn't seem to feel the same way. At the soul level, the intensity was shared, even if the personality denies it. Even if the other can't put it into words. Something awakened in both of you. And it's crucial to understand that these connections don't always last. They don't always turn into lasting relationships, but they always serve a purpose. And once that purpose is fulfilled, a part of you begins to transform. You start to see differently, to feel differently. You stop chasing safety and start craving depth, meaning, truth. This is what Jung would call a confrontation with the self, the true center of your being. That part of you that exists beyond the ego, beyond the roles you play. And it only awakens when you endure an experience powerful enough to break the illusion. And love, especially love that seems to be rooted in another dimension, is one of the most direct paths to get there. Some call these bonds karmic, others call them soulmates. Jung never used those terms in a literal way, but he did suggest that certain relationships operate from a more archetypal dimension. These are not merely interactions between two people, but exchanges between energies far greater than us, forces that push us toward integration, toward the reconciliation of what was once fragmented. And within that process, resistance inevitably surfaces, because the ego resists surrendering control. It clings to its comfort, to its structure. And when someone enters your life and shakes that inner architecture, what emerges is anxiety, fear, even anger. But if instead of running away, you choose to remain present, something extraordinary begins to unfold. You begin to remember who you are. Maybe not in words, maybe not with full clarity, but there's a kind of resonance, like an ancient melody that starts playing again inside of you. A deep, inexplicable knowing that this moment was meant to arrive, that this connection, with all of its contradictions, is part of a larger design. And it is often in that very moment that healing begins, not because of what the other gives you, but because of what they awaken in you. You begin to see your need for approval, your fear of abandonment, your pattern of wearing masks to be liked. All of that rises to the surface. It becomes visible. And though at first it feels like exposure, what's actually happening is liberation. Because love is not only sweetness, it is also a ruthless mirror. And if you have the courage to look into it, if you can hold what it shows you, love becomes a catalyst for authenticity. And once you've crossed that threshold, once you've felt that depth, you can't go back. You can no longer settle for superficial connections, because now you know what it means to feel with your soul. And that kind of love can't be forgotten. What truly transforms us in these bonds is how they force us to stop seeking outside what has always existed within. At first, it seems like the other person holds the answers, that their presence gives your life meaning, that their love completes you, and their gaze validates your existence. But as the soul begins to awaken, something shifts. You realize it was never them completing you. What completed you was the image they activated inside you, the reconnection to your forgotten parts, to your anima if you're a man, to your animus if you're a woman. Jung made it clear. We often fall in love not with the other, but with our projection. The unconscious, desperate to become whole, throws outwards everything it lacks. And when someone embodies that, the emotional impact is so powerful, we mistake it for love. But it's not just any love, it's an initiatory one, and what's hardest about it is accepting that the other may not have come to stay. They came to serve as a channel, sometimes only for a moment, sometimes for a few months, sometimes in a rhythm of comings and goings. But every time they return, they touch something sacred in you. And if you have the courage to face that with awareness, it can take you further than you ever imagined. Jung described it as a call to wholeness, the urge to unite what was once divided. And in that bond, a kind of alchemy unfolds, not superficial chemistry, but actual transmutation. A part of you must die so that another part can be born. What once was a wound becomes presence. What once was a desperate need becomes consciousness. But to get there, you must pass through the fire of separation, the fire of detachment, because this love will confront you with your deepest attachments, the ones you're most afraid to release. And that's perhaps the hardest moment, the point where many get lost, where some choose to numb themselves, to replace, to distract. But if you can hold that pain without running, something in you begins to rise. And it's not a mystical or fantastical elevation. It's an expansion of perception. You start to see the world differently. You begin to feel that everything has meaning, that every coincidence carries a message, that life itself becomes symbolic. And that, in Jungian terms, is a sign that the unconscious is becoming conscious. You no longer love with just your body or mind. Now, you love with your soul. And that way of loving doesn't vanish, can't be imitated, can't be replaced. Because once your heart has resonated at that level, everything else feels small. Not because it's bad, but because you've touched something deeper. And the soul cannot settle for less. Eventually, you understand. This love didn't come to give you a story. It came to give you a transformation, a resurrection, an invitation to truly inhabit yourself. And even if it still hurts, even if you still think of that person every day, something within you already knows. The real gift was not the relationship, but the path It opened within you. The journey back to yourself. And over time, something becomes undeniably clear. That person who appeared in your life wasn't a coincidence. They were a kind of initiator, as if chosen by something larger than you, not to stay, but to activate within you a search you had long forgotten. It was never about finding them. It was about beginning the search for yourself, with honesty, with courage, and without masks. Carl Jung once said that what we do not make conscious will manifest in our lives as fate. And if this encounter shook you to your core, if it disrupted your inner world in a way you couldn't ignore, it's not because life wanted to punish you, and it's certainly not because you were meant to suffer. It happened because something deeply unconscious within you needed to surface. This was never about pain for pain's sake, but about liberation, about shedding everything that no longer serves your growth, everything that can't survive in the next chapter of your evolution. When you begin to look at this connection, not through the eyes of your ego, but through the lens of your soul, everything starts to shift. You understand you're not here to complete someone else, nor is anyone here to complete you. You are here to remember who you truly are. And sometimes, love, pure, unexplainable love, is the only language powerful enough to break down the walls of self-deception you've built over a lifetime. Because when you love like that, without logic, without reason, without expecting anything in return, something in you becomes cleansed. You no longer love to possess. You love to expand, to open, to surrender even to the unknown. And in that surrender, something shifts, not in the outside world, but within you. You begin to see this person not as your destiny, not as the missing piece of your life, but as a mirror, a message, a sacred bridge. And that bridge leads you into the unknown territories within yourself, toward that sacred place Jung referred to as the self, your true center, your full psychic wholeness, your deepest truth. On the journey back to yourself, this other person becomes a symbol, not just a memory or someone who changed your life, but a living image connecting you to what you still need to integrate. Maybe your tenderness, maybe your strength, maybe your ability to surrender, to trust, to let go of control. It doesn't matter whether that person is still physically present or not. What truly matters is the internal transformation that was set in motion by their appearance. That's the most mysterious part, because even if you never speak again, even if your paths never cross once more, their energy continues to live within you, not as obsession, not as longing, but as an active symbol, an inner force guiding you toward your most authentic path. And in time, if you keep walking inward, something beautiful begins to unfold. You realize that all that love you once felt for the other was actually the love your soul had been begging for. Love that you had forgotten how to give to yourself. And when that realization comes, something miraculous happens. Almost without noticing, you begin to treat yourself with more respect, more gentleness, more care, not because someone else loved you, but because you finally saw what you were capable of feeling, how deep your emotions go, how real your experience is, and all that you believed the other person came to give you. You now feel it rising from within, and once you get there, something subtle but powerful changes. You no longer crave closure. You stop needing explanations. You release the desperate longing for answers, because you understand something fundamental. The soul doesn't need an ending. It needs meaning. And you've already found it. That connection was the catalyst. The soul doesn't measure in time. It measures in depth. And if that encounter peeled back layers you didn't even know existed, if it forced you to face your wounds, if it led you to seek something sacred, something beyond the surface, then it served its purpose. And once you reach that point, there is no going back. Because once the soul awakens, nothing feels the same again. You can no longer wear the same masks. You can't keep repeating hollow patterns. You can't keep denying what you now see. Because now you know, you've felt, you've remembered. And that memory transforms everything. You begin to look at others through new eyes, not from a place of lack or a need to be accepted, but from presence, from awareness, because you've come to understand that no one can give you what you haven't first given to yourself. Love is not something you ask for. It's something you radiate once you reconnect with your essence. And once that essence is activated, it becomes your compass. It guides how you speak, how you look at the world, how you love. Everything becomes more authentic, more grounded, more profound, even when it hurts, even when there are no answers, because you're no longer searching for explanations. You're searching for connection. Maybe that person will return to your life, or maybe not. But either way, your sense of self no longer hinges on their presence, because you've discovered something eternal, that the truest, most divine connection is not the one that ties you to another, but the one that brings you back to yourself, through everything the other awakened in you, and that no one can take away. And if this message truly resonated with you, if at any point it felt like I was speaking directly to the part of you that lives quietly within your soul, then I invite you to share your story in the comments. Not just because I want to read your words, but because I know, deep down, that out there in the world, there are countless others who have felt exactly what you've felt. People who have loved with such intensity and mystery that it defies explanation. People who have experienced connections so profound, so inexplicably real, that they seemed to transcend this physical world, as if born in another realm entirely. Your experience matters. What you felt, what perhaps you've never been able to explain, might be the key that helps someone else understand their own emotions. Sometimes we go through life carrying silent truths, thinking we are alone in what we feel. But when one person dares to give voice to the unspoken, it creates a ripple that touches others in ways we may never fully comprehend. So share this video with someone who might still be struggling to put their feelings into words. Share it with the people who have loved with their entire being and never had the chance to talk about it. With those who carry an invisible thread, a bond that never found closure, a story left unfinished yet eternally present in the heart. Let them hear these words, because maybe, just maybe, what you lived through is exactly what someone else needs to hear to finally feel understood, to realize they are not broken, to understand that what they feel is not only valid, but sacred, that their love wasn't ordinary. It was a glimpse into something greater. And if you feel called to keep diving deeper into these silent truths, into these unseen forces that move through our lives, then I invite you to subscribe, because this isn't just a channel about relationships. This is a space where we explore the language of the soul, a place where we dare to ask the deeper questions, where we listen not just with the mind, but with the spirit. Together, we'll keep unraveling the mysteries that live within us. We'll keep honoring the quiet parts of ourselves that have waited so long to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. So I'll see you in the next video. And until then, remember this: when the soul speaks, the heart always listens.